good strides this offseason, and they have made solid steps in the right direction. The team was 4-13 last year, 3-14 the year before that. I'm not of the expectation where like the entire roster needs to be Super Bowl level, but I would have liked the allocation of assets to be handled a little bit better, you know. That being said, the Giants do have, I guess, a couple of, shaky members on the roster. Kayvon Thibodeau has been in trade talks. Dexter Lawrence has been in trade talks. All of these players have been in trade talks, and those players can gain us, assets to where we could load up the cornerback room, or load up the guard room, or load up these different spots in our roster to where we don't have a Daniel Falele, Evan Neal, Marcus Bowe, three-way training camp battle in this summer. So the Giants have flexibility, and they have options on ways they could, improve and fill up this roster, but they're not gonna. It's gonna take a lot of shifting around to do. Now, if you look at the draft and we look at the options that they have, there's no direct path to them, I guess you could say, taking that position of need and not losing value. Like, if you look at the best players available, I mentioned them like 2 minutes ago: Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles. Those players are not directly of positions of need. That's just the way the draft is set up. So that's why the chatter of trading down has been, I guess, it's been just gaining a lot of, attention. Trading down to like 10 or 11, a little bit, picking up maybe Mansour Delane, the top corner on the board, picking up Maui Noah if he falls, and picking up the guard from Penn State, which will probably fall. All those are viable options, and they make sense within the trade down. It's an interesting dilemma the Giants are in, because they aren't talented in general. They're very flawed. Their roster is very flawed, but they have an opportunity to add like blue chip prospects at positions of low value and at positions that they don't really need. This draft is really interesting to me, because it's one of those drafts where, the draft is overall not talented, but it's not talented because the talent pool that it's shifting towards, like the position groups that are the more talented ends of this draft, they're the ones that are low value. If you look at Jeremiah Love, who's probably the best player in this draft, he's a running back, not really valued along NFL circles. If you look at Caleb Downs, who's probably the second most talented player in this draft, he is of another low value position in safety. And if you look at Sonny Styles, who I don't want to say he's the third best player, but he's up there. He is the third blue chip prospect. He plays off the ball linebacker, which is not highly regarded. And when you look at the Giants in particular, those three positions aren't exactly positions of need. Running back, you have Scadaboo and Tracy, a good running back duo. Safety, it's not super talented, but you did sign 3 safeties this offseason. You do have Javon Holland. You paid him a lot of money last year. Tyler Nubin, he hasn't played great this season, but he's, more than serviceable compared to what you have at other positions. And then you have linebacker. You brought back McFadden. You brought in Tremaine Edmonds. And it's all of these 3 players would be upgrades at the position. But when you look at the landscape of the Giants roster, the holes that they have and the positions that they need, and you also look at how impactful the specific positions of talents are, it's kind of hard to realistically justify picking them at 5. The thing is, Jeremiah Love is like the exciting pick, and I despite the fact that it probably won't make the most sense, I don't have an issue with selecting him. But it's along the mindset that there's nobody that's really like serviceable at positions of need for the Giants, unless you trade down, obviously. But that's another can of worms. I'm excited for the draft. I think it's 10 days from now. 10 days from now on the dot. And it's going to be interesting to see how the board plays out, not with just the Giants, but how if Ruben Bain falls. He's had some controversies this week. If he falls even further than he was projected to fall, if he falls outside of the top 10, it's interesting to see how Arvell Reese is going to end up on the Jets at this point. But it's interesting to see what happens past Fernando Mendoza at the first pick. If Ty Simpson, where he goes, if the Jets, pick up a guy in the second or third round like Drew Aller or Carson Beck, any of these guys, I think despite how untalented this draft is, comparative to next year's draft, which is like very like it has so much talent, it'd be interesting to see how it shapes out and how teams kind of attack it. Adam Schefter did. Was it Adam Schefter? I'm pretty sure it was Adam Schefter. He did put out a tweet saying that because of the lack of talent in the draft, that many trades will be happening. And he's also said a similar thing to when free agency started. This wasn't that the free agency class wasn't that talented, so he did predict an influx of trades to occur, and they did occur. And with the heavily rumored trades happening, I have to touch on Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau a little bit. I did touch on them a little bit before, but I have to throw out if I think they'll be traded. It's tough to gauge Dexter Lawrence's value, but it feels like it's as low as it realistically could be after looking at how good he played during the 2024 season, right? The 2024 season, he was he was the best nose tackle in the league, best interior pass rusher in the league, one of the best 10 players in the league. And honestly, if he didn't get injured, he would have probably run away with the Defensive Player of the Year award. Looking at how good he was in 2024, and then looking at his value now, it can't possibly like get lower as it is. I think I mentioned this last week, but Jordan Renan said his value is around a late first and an early second round pick. And if that's his value, you just got to pay him, honestly. The impact and the gravity that Dexter Lawrence has, even last year in 2025, when he was not that good in terms of raw statistics and raw pass rushing numbers, like Dexter Lawrence's gravity and his defensive, his impact on the run game and his ability to take on, just be a eater of blocks in terms of how offenses scheme up for him, and leave your electric edge rushers like Brian Burns and Abdul Carter on the edge to practically face exclusively one-on-ones. That's so valuable to this Giants team, and that's not really worth the first round pick that you'd gain in exchange for Lawrence. Now, if this was 2024, and if teams were, giving out packages that were aligned with how he played in 2024, if they were giving out the big 2 first round picks plus a Quinnen Williams type of deal where it's a first and a second round pick and a player on top of that, yeah, we could talk about that. But the Giants aren't in a position to let go of. First of all, the run defense was terrible with him in the game. With him playing, most of the season. Without him, I don't know if the Giants would be able to stop the run in general. You know what I'm saying? So if we look at the value he brings in how good he's been on a bad team, I don't think the Giants could really afford to, just let him go for a first round pick. Now, it's a different story if he wants to leave, but John Harbaugh, and I think I'll have this sound for you after the break. John Harbaugh did say that they had, I don't want to say they had good conversations, but they did say that they plan on keeping him. And yeah, I don't I don't know if he has a choice in that matter. The entries have been submitted for 1077 The Bronx first ever Build the Ultimate Bronx contest. The culinary team at Ryder Dining Services is busy evaluating each recipe in their test kitchen, and we are anxiously awaiting which students and their Bronxwishes will make the Magnificent Seven. Watch your Ryder email to find out which Bronxwich made the cut and which sandwich ended up being up on the chopping block. Then go to our Instagram at 1077 The Bronx to watch the IG reels from each of our 7 contestants. The student reel with the most views will make it to the Tasty 3 and the Build the Ultimate Bronxwich finale on Tuesday, April 28th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Cranberries. Be back with more What's Next Sports after these underwriting announcements on your 3-time 2026 Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Media Award winner, 1077 The Bronx.
And Prometheus was punished for stealing fire from the gods. Epimetheus unleashed misery upon
Okay. All right. So, couple things we got to get over. We got to finish talking about the Giants and the draft. Then we have to get into the NBA. We have to get into the NBA just a little bit. Not a little bit. We have to go over our playoff predictions, but we got to first hear some sound from John Harbaugh on Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, we'll find out. I think the prospects are going to be high because the Giants, speaking for the Giants, we want Dexter here, and I believe Dexter wants to be here. That's a good formula, but there's business involved. It's a business proposition. We know it's pro football. Good conversations with Dexter's agent, Joel Siegel, and understood what they were thinking, and this is where we're at. So we'll just try to work through it and see where we can get done.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun, but it feels like Dexter Lawrence, I don't want to say he's going to stay, but it feels like the Giants have no interest in trading him, and they shouldn't really have one. If you trade Dexter Lawrence for his rumored market value, which is a late first round pick, you're not really gaining anything, from it. Now, maybe if it was a first round pick plus, but at his best, he's a top 10 player in the league. And if you're selling him at an all-time value, at an all-time low, there has to be a really good reason for it. Unless he's absolutely demanding to, leave the Giants, which it doesn't, according to what John Harbaugh said, it doesn't sound like he is. It doesn't really make sense to deal him, despite the fact that you might get, draft capital. The Giants are in a little bit of a precarious situation. This team always stresses me out, but I feel a little bit more comfortable that John Harbaugh is making the decisions than, the previous regime, the previous, how they were doing things. But yeah. We got to switch topics though. Because yesterday, as of, I think 11 o'clock, the regular season of the NBA officially ended. Right, let me pull up the standings here. And I mean, we know the matchups for the local teams, or the local singular, the local team this year for the playoffs, but we don't know all the matchups for the playoffs of this year. So the Knicks are going to face the Hawks in a rematch of their 2021 season. That was the first year in the Tom Thibodeau era, and the first year the Knicks was good in almost a decade at that point. And I mean, it's going to be an interesting matchup, but outside of that, you have the Celtics. They're going to face somebody from the play-in. The Pistons are going to face somebody from the play-in. The Cavaliers are going to face the Raptors, and in the Western Conference, you have Lakers, Rockets, and there was news that Luka came back to America from his trip out to get to rehab, and he's going to be reevaluated on Tuesday, but he's going to miss at least a portion of the first round. The Nuggets are facing the Timberwolves, and the Spurs and Thunder, they're going to face play-in teams. For the Knicks and for the outlook on their playoff journey, that's going to happen over the course of hopefully over the more than a month. For this round, at least, I don't want to be stressed out, if that makes sense. Look, I don't expect to completely beat up on the Atlanta Hawks, and that's not really my expectation. But if you look at the two previous seasons, our first round matchups, then despite the fact that we won, it was the margin of victory was super slim. When Tom Thibodeau got fired last year, despite making the Eastern Conference Finals, at face value, it didn't really make sense because the Knicks had gotten farther than they've ever gotten in the past 20-something years. But when you look and when you see the wins they had in the playoffs, it kind of makes sense. The Pistons, they were supposed to be a far inferior team to us at that time. Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, all of these guys, this was supposed to be a championship roster, and we faced a young Pistons team in their first playoff matchup without Jaden Ivey and without Isaiah Stewart, and we barely beat them. I know we won in 6 and not like not 7 games, but if the margin of victory between I think all of those games combined was like +5 in favor of the Knicks, if I'm not mistaken. I remember we won game 1. We lost game 2. We won game 1 on a 21-point fourth quarter from our 21-0 run and like an insane fourth quarter from Campaign of all people. Lost game 2, won game either 3 or 4 on a missed call on a game-winning 3-point shot, and then we won the other game on a miraculous comeback, and then we won game 6 on Jalen Brunson hitting the game-winning shot by 3. And so when you look at how we played in that series against a team that was supposed to be far inferior to us, I understand why the like expectations were raised a little bit higher. And when I'm looking into this series against the Hawks, I don't want to see that. Like, I don't want to see us in tight games with the 6th seed as a team that's supposed to be like beating these guys by a lot. I don't want to be like I don't want to have I don't want it to be like a game 6 and like I'm on the edge of my seat hoping that the Knicks could pull it through and not like head to game 7. That's not like what I want, you know? And if we do end up in that position, then I'm not going to really feel comfortable about this, you know, core and about this roster going forward. That's where I am with the Knicks. I'm at a place where if we win in 6 games, that's fine, but it matters more how we win those 6 games. I don't want to have a heart attack every game like we did last year or the year before that. I don't want Tyrese Maxey like he did in, you know, we're not playing him, but I don't want Tyrese Maxey to go on like an 8-point run to force overtime. I don't want like the equivalent of that happening this year. I just want a little bit of an easy series, and that's not too much to ask when you're a team that has finals expectations like the Knicks do. My prediction though officially is Knicks in 6. Margin of victory, I feel like it's going to be a little bit wider than it was in previous seasons. If it's not, then I don't know what I'm going to do. Hold on, let me go to this. As for the equivalent in the Eastern Conference, Nuggets versus Timberwolves, that's an interesting series. The 3 to 6 range of the Western Conference Finals was super tight this year. I remember there was like a point in time where 3 through 6 were completely tied. But that gap has widened a little bit, and now the Nuggets have a 5-game lead. Had a 5-game lead on the Pistons. They won 12 straight games, and they're like far and away like, you know, above them in terms of, I guess, record wise. I don't really, you know, I don't really want to count out the Timberwolves because Anthony Edwards is good. They have a talented roster, but really, you know, the Nuggets just kind of outclass them in most ways. It's going to be an interesting series, but I think with Jokic and the ecosystem that the Nuggets have built around him, in contrast to the Timberwolves and how like his second option is Julius Randle, that's kind of shaky. You know, Jaden McDaniels could be inconsistent offensive. Like it's not really, you know, it's not really a strong supporting cast that I could trust as much as, you know, what we see from the Nuggets. Like the Timberwolves don't have a Jamal Murray. They have a Julius Randle. And I've watched Julius Randle be my number one option for, you know, only like 3 years. And that's not like that's not someone I trust, you know, fully in a matchup in a matchup against a team that's on a 12-game winning streak, that's clicking on all cylinders, that's been, you know, consistent throughout the season. I will say that I feel like the Timberwolves could measure up a lot to the Nuggets and play up, despite the fact that seeding wise they may be split. But I feel like the Nuggets should wrap this up in 6 games if I'm, you know, being realistic here. if you move to, I mean, the Spurs and the Thunder, they're gonna beat up on anybody who comes in through the play-in, so that's not really a discussion. But if you move on to the Lakers and Rockets, obviously, LeBron is gonna be the first option for at least a couple of games because Luka is, he has a hamstring. Austin Reeves isn't gonna be playing at all this series, and I don't want to be like pessimistic about the Lakers too much and pessimistic about LeBron's capabilities, but it's tough seeing them pull out a win against the Rockets unless like LeBron turns back the clock and they could have like consistent, cohesive play. I think for the Lakers, ironically enough, in a series against Clint Capella, I think the X factor for the Lakers is going to be DeAndre Ayton against the Rockets. Like, they don't have a lot of firepower already with Luka out and Reeves out for at least a portion of this series. If we can't have like really good performances, not just scoring wise, but overall by DeAndre Ayton, and I can't really see them pulling out many games against the Rockets. Now, I don't think it's like completely over. They don't need to go ballistic and like sweep them. But if before Luka gets back, LeBron could pull through a win, they'll be in good positioning to kind of like fight through this and maybe squeak out a series in 7. Other than that, I don't want to. I might have to go Rockets with this one. Rockets in like 6 or 5, really. If depending on when Luka gets back. Even when Luka gets back, he's not going to be 100%. And this team isn't, well built to have a consistent series against a Rockets team that's better structured than them. Unless Luka could come back and play like his MVP form off of a grade 2 hamstring injury, which I don't see that, likely at all, then it's going to be Rockets in 5 or 6. Maybe the Lakers could like pull out some magic, but I don't see that as a realistic possibility for me, at least. Moving on to, I guess we could do one more Eastern Conference game, then we can move on to the second round. Cavaliers and Raptors. It's the Cavaliers. It's going to be easily the Cavaliers on this one. Raptors aren't a bad team, and they're building pretty well post OG Anunoby trade with RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes. But there's like a clear gap between the top 4 in the Eastern Conference, and then everything below them. And I feel like the Raptors, despite the fact that they are only 1 seed apart from the Cavaliers, aren't really close to that level to where they could contend with the Cavaliers. Really, the Cavs just have too much firepower with Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. Now they have a strong defensive duo with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I don't know if the Raptors have the talent at the 5 to really contend with both of those big threats. And I don't think they have the perimeter guys to contend with James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. I think it's like very easily. I like the Raptors as a team, and I like what they're building there. But I think it's very like obvious that the Cavaliers are just like kind of a tier above them in terms of where like their paths in development as a team. But I think it really gets interesting for the Eastern Conference when we get to the second round, because I mean we're assuming that the Knicks are going to face the Celtics and the Cavaliers are going to face the Pistons. Which I'm not gonna assume that, but unless like, and here's the team. I don't want to sidetrack, but here's a team that like maybe could pull off an upset early. Maybe the Hornets, who have been really good over the second half of the season, if they pull off something crazy and continue the trajectory they're at, maybe they could upset the Celtics. But I think it's like pretty much confirmed that it's gonna be Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, and Cavs in the second round. And I'm gonna speak of this from the Knicks perspective, obviously. I feel more confident about the Knicks facing the Celtics than I did a couple of weeks ago, solely because not like obviously they beat the Celtics this past week, which was a huge win, and they've played overall a better brand of basketball than they were playing, I think, those weeks back. But they're still I feel like they're on such shaky standing in terms of, like a 7-game series against a really good team. Like I saw how poorly they played in mid to late March. Even through that 7-game win streak they had. And I just don't think overall this is a team that could, even if they beat the Celtics, can beat the Pistons right after that. Right? If we look back to last year and when they faced the Celtics, they had the most insane 2 20-point comebacks ever. They got blown out in game 3. In game 4, they were down 14 again before having a really good comeback again, which these are all like very good attributes. But then Jason Tatum, when it was a 9-point game, Jason Tatum tore his Achilles, and basically the series was over. I don't know if they could replicate that form or that brand of winning in another playoff series a year later. Now, I think the Celtics are less talented than they were last year, which it's a given because this was supposed to be a gap year for them. But annoyingly enough, they became the 2nd seed. But I think they're less talented than they were last year. But I still feel that when you're going up in a 7-game series against a Jason Tatum, who's probably going to be more comfortable, Jaylen Brown, who's playing his best brand of basketball he's played in his entire career, and a team with a overall good ecosystem and like long, very lengthy, great wing defenders that are facing like a Jalen Brunson that struggled, I guess, over the latter half of the season. I think the Knicks overall are very susceptible to this team beating them. I don't want to say handily, but kind of like having a severe advantage over them. I don't know. I would be excited to see, playoff Jalen Brunson, see how he kind of like adjusts to like the playoff atmosphere, because usually he's better in the playoffs, but over the past couple months or so, even dating back to like the All-Star break, he's been a little bit shaky in terms of his consistency and his efficiency and his overall play. But and that's why I have a little bit of concerns if he could handle the Celtics' Hugo Gonzalez, or if he could even handle a guy, like a Jason Tatum switching onto him, or one of the like the lengthy wing defenders that teams like to throw onto him. I'm not really that concerned with Jalen Brunson. I'm just more so concerned about the team like as a whole, and if they could, I don't know, kind of. I don't want to be disappointed again by by the expectations I have. And I know it sounds like it feels like I might be setting the bar, I guess, too low and too high at the same time. I've said before that if this team doesn't make the finals, I'm tearing it down, or not tearing it down, but I'm making like severe changes. If this team doesn't beat the Celtics and beat the Pistons, I'm making those severe changes. And then, but this is the year. This is the year that this is the only shot they have at making a very deep playoff run and making the finals. I've said it before, but the Pistons, the Celtics, they're all both of these teams, and the Pacers, they're as off balance as they're ever going to be. You're never going to have another season where two of your top competitors for the Eastern Conference is out of commission completely because of Achilles tears, where the best player on the best team in the Eastern Conference has a collapsed lung and is out for an extended period of time before the playoffs happen. You're never going to have an opportunity like that again to reach the NBA Finals. And if you cannot reach the NBA Finals in a season where it is like primed for you to reach it, then there's no point in really you continuing with this core group. That being said, I don't want to jump the gun on, you know, on whether the Knicks are gonna like succeed or fail, but I'm just hoping that at the very least we beat the Celtics. I'll be happy with that. I'll be happy with that. With over 500,000 views in the last 90 days, our social media is popping. Okay, be a part of the trend. Follow 1077 The Bronx to see what we're up to on air, behind the scenes, on the Instagram at 1077 The Bronx, and on TikTok at 1077 The Bronx WRRC. After you follow The Bronx on social media, sport The Bronx on and off campus, gear up for summer by shopping the Bronx General Store, from short sleeves to polos to insulated drinkware for your acai refresher. Go to 1077thebronx.com/shop The Bronx to make your campus fashion statement. We'll be back with more What's Next Sports after these underwriting announcements. While you're waiting for the return of my show, don't forget to like and follow The Bronx on Instagram at 1077 The Bronx and on TikTok at 1077thebronx.wrcc. Yes, sir.
What seems to be the problem? You need your health and wellness minute on 1077.
we're in the final stretch of the show. We got a couple more things to go over. We got to touch on the Yankees for a little bit, even though I don't I don't want to, because of how poorly they've been playing over the past week or so. Last time we were on, they were 8-2 or 7-2, either 8-2 or 8-3. And I was just raving about how good the pitching is, how good, the rotation is, even before Rodon and Cole get back, how good Fried, Schlittler, the bullpen was looking pretty good too. I said, I thought we found our closer in Bednar. I did. Here's the thing. I did talk a little bit about my concerns for the hitting, but I was talking about like how it's too home run dependent, how Judge could kind of carry the offense. Ever since that show, the Yankees have completely gone downhill in terms of like most things. The hitting has been especially awful because I saw a stat that said the Yankees lineup has a batting average of 156 over their 5-game losing streak, and the relief pitching has been just as bad. Honestly, there've been multiple blown leads from Bednar Bednar. I think yesterday he was up 3-4 in the ninth or 10th inning. He gave up 2 runs to lose the game. I'm pretty sure Cruz gave up a couple runs to lose them another game earlier this week. It's just been bad overall from the Yankees, and I don't want to. I try not to overreact to bad stretches at a time. I try not to overreact to, in a 162 game season, I try not to hyper focus on 1 or 2 bad games, but this is like a consistent issue throughout the entirety of the MLB season, where you have the hitters are not fighting their stride. The pitching is devolving, especially the relief pitching, and Fried and Schlittler in both of their most recent outings have not been they've been fine, but they've not been as amazing as, you hope them to be. But it's not their fault that you're losing these games, because quite frankly, they're scoring like 2 or 3 runs a game. I'm pretty sure they're averaging that this season. They're not really getting on base. When they get on base, they're not batting the runners in. They're one of the worst batting teams with runners in scoring position. Even Aaron Judge, who usually carries a mediocre offense around him, he's not doing crazy good either. Now, he's not doing terrible. I think he has 4 home runs on the season. He's batting in, I think, sub 200. He's not doing horrible. But when the team around him, when the 6 through 9 hitters are all batting like well below 200, when the top of the lineup isn't really batting that well either, and Aaron Judge isn't playing at superhuman levels, it's very noticeable how poor this Yankees offense is. Jazz Chisholm was in the news recently because, he tried, I think a couple games ago, bases loaded, tied game 4-4, 1 out. He got a ground ball and he didn't, perform a double play properly to, save the game. That's how the Yankees ended up losing. He's been not great this season. In the field and as a bat. Usually he's supposed to be, last year was the Yankees cleanup hitter for most of the season. So you'd hope that he provides some juice, but as the 6th hitter, he's been part of the dreaded 6 through 9 rotation, where it's just like easy pickings for any pitcher that comes up. It's been very bad for the Yankees, especially the Yankees bats. And they've gone from the best record in the league to potentially losing the first place in the AL East. Again, I try my best not to it's only like we're not even 10% through with the season. It's only 15 or 16 games. There's a lot more baseball left to play. And this team is talented enough to pull through that, despite how badly they're hitting, they're talented enough to pull through. And they're having reinforcements come in Cole and Rodon, in June or May. Things will get better, But like I said before, I always reference that Blue Jays series as a metric to how confident I feel about the Yankees. And the team is just completely imploding in terms of hitting the ball, in terms of their rotation. Bednar has had a few, questionable closes this season. Judge isn't playing superhumanly well, and that's pretty obvious when you look at how he's not really able to carry a team who's playing worse than usual. And Max Fried and Cam Schlittler, they had average outings, and the Yankees offense was so awful that it couldn't really make up for that. It's really bad for the Yankees and the Mets too. They both are on a bad stretch, but I know the good thing about baseball is that usually everything evens out. That's a good thing about having a long season. You're going to have the bad stretches, you're going to have the good stretches, but usually talent evens out over the long period of time, and you get a good idea of how well your team is built. My problem is not over the course of the regular season. It's more so about how they'll fare in the playoffs again. Will we see a repeat of last year where the bats just completely die out? There's gaps in the rotation that just can't hit, and the bullpen isn't sufficient enough to carry these aspects, and you end up imploding in the divisional round or in the wild card, or you end up imploding just straight up in the World Series like you did in 2024. Those are all valid concerns for the Yankees, but I feel like at least for now, things will figure itself out. Yeah, I'll say that. Thank you for listening, though. We're gonna end the show here. We'll be back next Monday from 2 to 3, probably with a mock draft. We're gonna do a mock draft next week. Stay tuned for more of the biggest hits and best variety on the Princeton's Reviews number 18th best college radio station, 3-time 2026 IBS Media Award winner, and 5-time NAB Marconi Radio Award nominee for College Radio Station of the Year, 107.7 The... one second, hold on. 107.7 The Bronx.
107.7 The Bronx, WRRC-FM, Lawrenceville, New Jersey.